Hello, Endersword here again, this time with a replay from the Gold League. We're going to be looking at the player Psychotropic again. Some of you may recognize that name from an earlier replay. This is actually a guy that I knew from Bronze League when he initially gave me a replay to look at. And he's now actually moved from Bronze to Silver and right into Gold in only a few weeks. So excellent progress there. But he is having a little trouble with the Protoss versus Zerg matchup, as I know both a lot of Protoss are having and a lot of Zerg are having trouble with this matchup. So we're going to look at it from the Protoss perspective today. I'll try and do another Zerg one probably at the gold level and look at their perspective as well. But we're going to be looking obviously at Protoss today. His opponent for this game is going to be GdbtmdC, which is just a horrible name. I'm not sure what that really stands for or signifies, but there you have it. So that's our evil Zerg player. The 3 points that I'm going to look at during this game are number one, macro and production throughout the game. Protoss eventually lets his economy get completely out of control and money just accumulate like crazy. You need to be making sure that you are adding production facilities at the right times to make sure that you can spend the money that you have coming in, because it is very important to quickly be replacing your armies in this matchup. Second thing I'm going to look at is the idea of attacking for a specific purpose, making sure that you're really driven towards what you're trying to accomplish. And that can be very different things, whether you're looking to actually destroy something, take an army out, disrupting an economy, delay something, but there has to be a purpose to what you're trying to do. And the third thing that we're going to look at is just awareness of game flow, which is very important in this matchup. It often comes down to preventing your opponent from taking an expansion at the time they want to, and knowing when they can tech switch into other things, and being sure that you can respond to it at various times. So we can see the initial attack coming in here of 3 Zealots onto the Zerg Natural. This is something that's gained a little bit more popularity. I think Tyler did this in some tournament just recently, and a lot of people have been doing it since, is just going out with a few early Zealots and seeing what you can do with them. However, in this case, what you're trying to accomplish with that is not really causing damage. It's forcing the Zerg player to defend themselves. You want to force them to put down static defenses. You want to force them to divert larvae into making Zerglings. Every little batch of Zerglings that gets made and every spine crawler that gets put down simply represents another drone that doesn't get made, and that's what you're trying to accomplish with that sort of pressure. It's not really an attack. It's not like there is any hope in hell that you are ever going to actually take out this hatchery or anything. You're not going to cause a lot of damage, but if they've absolutely not defended themselves, maybe you can pick off a queen, maybe you can pick off a couple drones. But when you round that corner and see that they are actually defending themselves, you have to immediately go home. Just as soon as he saw that first spine crawler up with 2 more building, he should have took those Zealots right back to his own base, because you've actually already done the damage you were looking to do. You're looking to force him to defend himself, and he already did. So great, go home. Otherwise, you're just donating those Zealots, and no damage was caused there to the Zerg player. So get on back. Because of the loss of those, this natural is going to be delayed a fair bit. He has 3 less Zealots now that can hold this area. He's not gone for a lot of centuries because he's going for a Stargate here. So it would be harder to defend this area until he was able to replace those 3 Zealots, or else he'd just have a Zealot and a sentry there and couldn't, would easily get surrounded the moment he tried to put that up. You want to, again, get those back home so that you can get that up quicker. A lot of Protoss builds are focused on getting that natural up as quick as possible, and 9 minutes to get that even started is very late to be doing. The Void Rays do poke in here to see what sort of damage they can cause, and rightfully kind of, do this, pull in and out, not really taking a lot of hull damage here. A good poke in, but ultimately does no damage for anything there. What you see Protoss players doing when they go Void Ray is usually you're trying to just prevent expansions from going up. Around this time, a fairly good Zerg player is usually done or making his third base. So you often want these poking around the outskirts to make sure that no third bases are actually going up, as opposed to attacking directly in with them. Yes, you can make that poke in, but you're not very likely to do a lot of damage. This multiple queen play is very popular these days, so it's unlikely you're really going to get anything done. It's really the denial of the expansions you're looking for. And since that is your purpose, a commitment to 4 Void Rays can be quite excessive. That's a use of 1,000 minerals as well as 600 gas. So it is a bit much to be investing on something that's very speculative like that, that isn't going to do guaranteed damage. And it's just a big investment. He's very undefended at home. If there was just a large roach army that was going to poke in at the natural expansion, it would do a ton of damage right now. There's really no way to stop that with only 1 sentry and a bunch of zealots. There's nothing that's really capable of holding off a roach sort of play. And particularly where the Protoss doesn't know that there's a third base going up at the moment, he's unaware of that one there. There's nothing to indicate that this is not going to be some sort of roach all-in or a roach infestor all-in or something like that off of 2 bases. So it's something he should be defending against. Does a little bit of damage here, taking out a few drones. Ultimately will get this extractor, but could have done more damage if he was aware that this expansion was there. You want to constantly be scouting around the map, particularly between about the 8 and 13 minute marks. There's just got to be another expansion going up, and if there isn't one going up during this period of time, you should be concerned very much about 2 base all-ins coming from that Zerg player, in which case this defense isn't really enough to be stopping that. So try and get a little more map awareness, whether you're getting observers out of your robo facility, or you should always really get the hallucination against Zerg players so that you can very quickly scan through maps. The Void Rays are really good at preventing this sort of thing from going up. Right now it would take the Queen so long to get up there that this would be dead before they can respond, and this would be dead before they can respond. But ultimately no real use is gotten out of these Void Rays because they don't end up limiting the economy, and that is their primary function. The Protoss player is going for a third base here now, but again we're getting that quite late. The Zerg player's not really pressured the Protoss at any strong point during this game, so there's no reason to have that delayed as much. You could easily get that up at about the 11th minute mark, I would say, in this game. He could have afforded to safely do so. It didn't look like there was any strong army potential by the Zerg player at that point, and there's no reason to not take that. We do have the Void Rays picked off by a lot of Corruptors. That's an interesting tech switch to be making so strong. Obviously he's doing that not just to take out the original Void Rays, but he would sense that there's a lot of Colossus that are going to be coming out soon. And by going into the Corruptors, he can actually wipe out both threats completely and still have the Corruptors around to go into Broodlords. So as soon as you as a Protoss player see that there's this many Corruptors, you know a couple things. One, he's just invested way too much into these. That is a lot of money being put into that sort of a unit that is only going to be good against your Colossus. But you also know that it kind of puts you on a clock. You see that Corruptors are out, so a Spire is up. He did see the Spire earlier, and there's a huge investment in this. He's clearly planning to transition into Broodlords at some point in this game, or at least can always threaten to do so. So you're on a bit of a time constraint now in when you have to get damage done, because if these are able to be turned into a bunch of Broodlords, there's not a lot that the Protoss player is going to be able to do to stop it once there are that many of them. So he does launch an attack against the army. There weren't that many roaches there, as we would expect, given that there was so much investment into the Corruptors. But this army kind of just wanders around for a little while. The attack was made, and it was made at a time that makes some sense. You really felt he had to attack right then, but nothing is ultimately accomplished by this. He runs around and kills a few roaches here and there, which is certainly good at keeping the Zerg army count down, but you're also losing some of your own units as you do this. And he's just sitting in the middle of creep between all these bases and not actually going towards them. Even though he hasn't actually seen that this base is up here, he should be seeing that units are streaming down from that position and therefore be aware that it's there anyway, whether he's actually seen it or not. And an easy poke up to that position after this initial attack could have taken that out. And when you take that out, you're taking out the production, obviously, of the Zerg player. Instead here, he switches into Lings and ultimately pushes back this army. Again, didn't really push it back, he simply withdrew it. There was no reason to necessarily take this home. He should be sending these reinforcements down, should be getting a proxy pylon up, should be constantly reinforcing and sustaining that push, but instead he opts to actually go back home. We can see at this point money is absolutely getting out of hand for the Protoss player, and he's got a bunch of probes sitting around with nothing to do. At this point there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gateways on the map. With this much money, he should, without blinking an eye, throw down like 10 more. It can seem excessive to a lot of people to just make that many, but you need to catch up and turn these minerals into an actual army. Even if it's just zealots that you're getting out, you need to throw down that production in a massive way. You should be trying to keep gateways going up each time you add another expansion. A bunch more should have been added here. You can even use them to help make a wall off here to prevent a Ling run-in into your base anyway. Chrono boosts are full there, and the only place they're not full is at the natural. Chrono boosting all your gateways, making way more gateways, just getting units pumped out, so that you can instantly remax. There's no monetary limit to this army at the moment. The limitation is only in the production facilities, so don't let that limit you. If he had launched that attack, pulled back, and had enough warp gates, he could have instantly remaxed the entire thing and just launched the attack again, while the Zerg player doesn't have that level of production. If he had re-attacked during this point, at which Broodlords were warping back, are actually morphing in, he could have done tons and tons of damage, but ultimately didn't. And once these are really done and have a little ground cover, this is simply going to become something that can't be stopped, even though he's got all this money banked up there. So as we watch towards what will eventually be the end of this game, Zerg just goes in for the full surround on this army, and we have an army absolutely crushed just due to this surround in a way that could have been prevented if he had simply sustained that attack, not pulled back, and made sure that he was actually continuously producing. Even at this point, with all the actual Lings and most of the ground army dead, if he has enough gateways available, there is nothing preventing him from warping in 30 stalkers right now. He has the money to just warp in 30 new stalkers and completely take this entire thing out, but he doesn't have the production to warp in 30 stalkers, and that's ultimately what ends up being the kill shot in this. So macro's got to keep up, you have to attack for a specific reason, and you have to be aware of